Hey there, we're back again with another video. Today we're going to be doing how to document coercive control. As always, I got my notes right next to me. And yesterday we talked about what coercive control was exactly and the different red flags within a relationship, within, intimate partner violence, within domestic violence. So today we're going to talk about how we can get that documented for a judge to see it in different ways, right? Because we can't go in there emotionally escalated. We talk about that almost every video. So we're going to talk about different ways that you can help show a judge who it is that you're dealing with, and ways to do that without implying narcissism, without implying abuse, and sort of letting a judge come to their own determination. That's really what it's all about in a courtroom. So one of the ways that you can document coercive control is texts and recordings of the abuser trying to isolate you. The first step in gaining control for abusers is to divide and conquer, right? So abusers will often attempt to isolate you from friends or family or any type of support system in order to achieve total power. If your partner starts to say negative things about your family, this should be the first red flag. So for kids, this will look like they're not taking them to sporting events, they're missing birthday parties, medical appointments, family events, things like that, birthdays, funerals, important things, building blocks for a good social support system. Those can be recorded as well. The video calls can be recorded as well. When it comes to isolation, you can show things like, if you do Skype calls or visitation calls, stuff like that, you need to be recording those, and I'll dive into that in a little bit. But those need to be recorded. The abrupt disconnections of phone calls, the hanging up, just in general, the sort of parental alienation. Those can all be documented and proved, but you really have to know what you're doing and do some research in order to get that shown. Once again, parental alienation is not normal. It's not a normal behavior. So that's why a lot of judges kind of let a lot of stuff slide for a while, because it's not a normal behavior. It's something that is scary and foreign to even family court judges. They might see it all the time, but getting documentation of it is it can be a little bit difficult. So you'll feel validated too. So one of the things I want to specify here are video calls. If this is something that you use, go ahead and watch it. If not, just ignore for the next 30 seconds or so. But video calls should always be recorded for accountability purposes anyways. And trust me when I tell you, it's going to help with healing. You're going to feel validated when you're reviewing your evidence before hearings, before, trials. You're going to eventually not feel as emotionally reactive as well, because they will start outbursting over video calls. So once you get enough of those on recording, and you're not, responding emotionally, you're not getting reactive, you're staying nice and calm, listening to the conversation, getting it all documented and recorded for the judge to see, you're going to build your confidence in knowing that this is a boundary you set. And while I may not need to yell my boundary at my, prior abuser, it's definitely something that I'm comfortable sharing with strangers like judges. And the abuser is going to have to see that. Eventually, they're going to see that. So the other thing, another way to show documentation of coercive control is showing proof of denied freedoms. So when an abuser starts controlling or denying your freedom, they're essentially trying to break our identity. And we no longer see the things that we used to do that made us happy. So it's really easy to tell for many scientists and researchers. They've all been able to sort of figure out that abusers want our world to become very small, and they want themselves to be essentially the ruler of that world, whatever that world may be in their mind. But it's not the truth. Don't listen to that. So don't be isolated. Don't be isolated. You'll get through it. The first step, you're right where you need to be. The first step is just recognizing the signs, symptoms, red flags. And then from there, you kind of go into an investigation, and then you start doing what you need to do to get safe. So Another way to show coercive control is the controlling of finances. You're going to need evidence for this, like a bank statement that's only in their name, or a text dictating whether or not money can be spent. It's best to have a text message where they're declining the spending of money if the item in the text message is a basic necessity for a child. So I'm not saying to manufacture evidence at all by any means, but what I am saying is that if you have a text that shows, hey, I need to buy child a snow coat for the winter time, and they say no, that's kind of gonna show the judge where their priorities may be at. Proof of them forcing us to live our lives by their rules. So a good document could be a written ultimatum that's frequently sent by abusers. If you don't, stop going to family outings, I'm going to leave you. Or if you try to divorce me, I'm going to take the kids. Or if you, kick me out of this house, I'm going to get you fired. Stuff like that. You want those in writing. So something is also as simple, and something that people I don't think commonly think about is abusers will send apology text messages. They'll say, oh, I'm so sorry that I did this, that, and the other. And if they don't say what it is that they did in the text, you can always ask them, what are you sorry for? And they'll respond. So there's your documentation right there, substantiating that. Everybody thinks that an apology text may make you look bad in court. It doesn't. The worst that it makes you look is that you're able to co-parent because you're accepting of this apology, you're moving forward in this issue, in this debacle, and that's kind of what it shows the judge at worst case scenario for your situation. At best case scenario, best using that term loosely, it's going to show them, you're going to have a screenshot of a text message where they're saying, I'm so sorry I threw all your stuff out on the lawn. I was just mad because you didn't XYZ. And there's some more proof of domestic violence. A lot of people don't think of apology text messages from abusers like that, but they do. They only apologize one way, and it's a very passive aggressive way. It's a very narcissistic way. So even those text messages will, show a better picture. Even if it gets thrown out, the judge has read it. It's going to show perspective for your argument and your topic of that hearing. So it's going to show people. Parental alienation. So this one I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. This is a big one for court. A lot of things can display parental alienation. Things like recording what the kids come home to tell when they go on visitation with the counterparent, co-parent, whatever you want to call them. I call them counterparent because it's never co-parenting. I have never been an equal in my abuser's eyes. I've always been objectified, and that's that object relations theory that we talked about in an earlier video. So it's counterparent in my opinion. So you can always record the kids when they come home. Kids talk. They'll tell you what it is that the other parent's saying. Daddy says you're mean. Daddy says you're this. Daddy says you're that. And that can also substantiate as long as it's on a recording. It has to be obviously recorded, documented for court's sake. So you can use that sort of method. Texts from abusers also show threats or nasty language that is effectively parental alienation. Obviously, they're not going to be willing to work with you. They're not going to be supportive of your relationship with the kids if they're sending you threats. Not only does the threat substantiate your documentation for court, but you may qualify for a restraining order. Sometimes restraining orders can make things hard in like child custody exchanges, visitation drop-offs, things like that can make it definitely a challenge. The way that, my grandfather's in law enforcement, and the way that he sees it is he sees it as a piece of paper is not going to stop somebody from hurting you when they really want to hurt you. I think there's plenty of evidence and research out there also supporting that, where, victims of domestic violence have gotten restraining orders. They've reported their abusers on multiple accounts, and unfortunately bad things are still happening because, nobody's stopping these people from having access to their victims. It's obscene. So you may want to look into the restraining order if you have text messages of threats, harassing messages, stuff like that. Another parental alienation tactic is a no-show during drop-offs. So if you're scheduled to pick up kids, co-parent, counterparent doesn't drop them off, and they really obstruct your time with the kids, that is by definition parental alienation. It's really, really restrictive of your growth with your kiddos. Another little known fact: audio, not video, audio is oftentimes recognized and able to be submitted for evidence in a courtroom. Video is a little bit more difficult. You have to have a two-party consent state. So Oregon and Colorado are both one-party consent states. What that means is I can record a phone call, I can record a video call, I can record a conversation, but I cannot video record you and your face talking to me without your consent and then go use it in a courtroom. I would have to have your consent to use it, which obviously in a power exchange dynamic would not work with an abuser. And then another thing is threats that took place during the marriage. If you guys have already been divorced, that can also help early on with the child custody hearings. Early on, once you get that initial child custody order dictating what happens, you can't really do much with that. So violent threats also, they're never okay, and they're a form of coercive control. If you have text messages with those, you not only can submit those for child custody court, but you may even qualify for a restraining order like we talked about early. Breaking things in a family home is also a legal form of domestic violence. Make sure you take pictures of anything that's thrown, holes in the walls, broken things, smashed up TVs. This is going to help the judge see the picture that you are painting regarding their personality. So once again, you can, and I'm going to reference my previous filing video, you can and should be documenting any of these behaviors on your recorded calendars. You've hopefully already established a blank slate monthly calendar for 12 months out of the year, different binder for every year. You need to be annotating, put an asterisk on February 27th, received gaslighting text messages. March 3rd was harassed. June 9th, how to call police, stuff like that. All that stuff needs to be annotated. This is going to help show the judge a pattern of behavior. So let's say over a course of a couple of years, your counterparent is saying, I can do it. I went through therapy. I did this. I did that. But the judge has his pattern of behavior sitting right there in front of them. So he can say, Mr. So-and-so, once a month, you're losing your marbles and you're sending 700 messages back to back, all of which are very threatening and confrontational, and you're doing that for a week out of every month. No, you have not worked on yourself. It makes it a lot easier for a judge to see those things. So you have to know that moving forward, when you leave an abuser, everything needs to be documented. I don't mean a text message binder or a bill binder. I mean every little thing. If you have a phone call, you need to screenshot how many minutes and seconds that phone call lasted. If you have text messages, you need to screenshot those and print them all out. Every single text message you need to keep. Every medical record for kiddo, every medical record for you, every diagnosis you may have, complex PTSD, anxiety, depression, all that stuff, the whole nine. Everything needs to be kept. I cannot stress that enough. It is so much easier to have it and not need it than it is to not have it and very much need it in a courtroom. And by the way, pro tip, abusers are going to accuse you of everything under the sun, even when it's untrue. So the more you have, the easier your life is going to be. You are going to go up against a person who is going to say the most awful, awful things about you. So the more that you can debunk that and say, I'm refusing time, but on our monthly calendars, right? January through, 1st through 4th, whatever it may be, showed for your visit. And that's how it goes. Factual, short, straight to the point. Like I said in every single video here, you're lining up point A to point A, point B to point B, all that stuff for the judge to see. So with that, I bid you adieu. You're doing a fantastic job. Keep your head up, keep grinding, keep going, and make sure you especially keep documenting. Get those binders set up, please. Bye.